Hi, this is Chris from Shantech.tv. Today I'll be showing you Eddie's vehicle physics from the Unity Asset Store. By the end of the video, you should have all the knowledge you need to get your vehicle set up in your game with the asset. Let's get started. So I've created a new empty project and I've imported Eddie's vehicle physics, as well as the vehicle that I want to set up. I've then opened the city simple scene and deleted any of the existing vehicles that were already in here. So the first thing we want to do is create an empty game object. And I'm going to call this red vehicle. And then I'll reset the position. And then I'll just drag this out onto the road. And then under my vehicle, I'll create an empty child and I'll call this wheel colliders. And then I'll create another empty under this. So I've duplicated that one 4 times over in the order of front left, front right, rear right. Now I want to select all of those and attach a wheel collider. Then next up, we want to bring in the collision for our vehicle. Underneath our vehicle, if you happen to have any mesh renderers, then just make sure you remove those, and also make sure you have a mesh collider attached to them that's convex. And I'll just unpack this prefab. Then next up, we want to select our vehicle and bring that in. So all of these are children of the game object we set up for our vehicle. For that vehicle, I'll just make sure I've unpacked my prefab again. So at this point, you should have the parent for your vehicle. That's just an empty game object with nothing attached to it. You've then got your vehicle with all of your vehicle elements inside. You then have the collision. And then you've got the game object here with all of your wheel colliders. So if we head back to our vehicle, we'll then add a vehicle controller. So as you can see, that will add a rigid body automatically. So for the mass, we'll set this to 1000. You can obviously play around depending on what kind of vehicle you're setting up. The angular drag, we'll set that to 0. Interpolate, we'll set that to interpolate. Okay, so now we'll set up our wheels. So we'll just hit the padlock here to make it a bit easier. And then we've expanded all of these out. So as you can see here, I've got my front left pivot for my wheel on this specific model, and then underneath that I have my wheel. So this one here, the pivot, is actually for the caliper, and as you can see on the vehicle, when I add a new wheel, I have the options for a wheel collider, a wheel transform, and a caliper. If your vehicle doesn't have a separate caliper, you can just leave that blank. As long as you have your wheel collider and your wheel transform for all 4 of your wheels, then everything will be set up accordingly. So since we have 4 wheels, we'll add 4 objects in here. And we'll start by attaching our wheel colliders. So we will go front left, front right, rear left, rear right. And then we want to attach our wheel objects, which with this model is the wheel front left, wheel front right, wheel rear left, wheel rear right. And then for our calipers, we want the pivot. So front left, front right, rear left, and the rear right. So as you can see here, this is why the naming is so important when it comes to setting everything up, because you can quite easily go through and see if you've made any mistakes. Some models might just have wheel, 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 wheel for all of your wheels and not actually identify what they are, so it makes it much harder. So if that's the case for you, just make sure you go through and rename them all so you know what's what first. Okay, so for our front wheels, we want them to be able to steer, drive, and brake. And then for our rear wheels, we want them to drive, brake, and handbrake. Now on our vehicle controller, if we right click and we say adjust wheel colliders to their meshes, and as you can see there, everything's been moved into place. Okay, so the next thing we want to add is the vehicle standard input. And as the vehicle controller and the vehicle standard input are on the same game object, you can just leave the target blank and it will automatically pull the vehicle controller into there. So that's the basic setup of the vehicle done. If you've done this in your own scene and not used the same one as me, then you most likely won't have the camera controller in your scene. So you can find that under EVP5, prefabs, and camera controller. Just drag that into your scene. I'll go through the ground material manager in the next video in a bit more detail. So under your camera controller for the target, the parent here of your vehicle, just attach that to the target and then hit play. And just like that, you've got your own drivable vehicle. You may notice that it's very quiet, no sound attached to it. So let's look at how we can get some audio on this car. So the easiest way that I've found to do this is to have a play around with these vehicles and find one that you like the sound of. For me, I'm going to use the Drift Sports Coupe. So I'll drag that in. For my red vehicle, I'll just grab the location. And then for this vehicle, I'll paste it into the same location. I'll unpack the prefab. Everything under the audio game object here, I'll drag that onto my vehicle. And then back onto the vehicle that I dragged in. Under vehicle audio, I'll copy the component. Back onto my vehicle. And I'll paste component as new. So as you can see, all of the references here are all already set for you. All of the settings are already set because they've come off of the other vehicle. And we've just taken all the sources and put them onto our vehicle. So now we'll get rid of this one. And then when we hit play, so that covers all the basic details you need to get up and running. In the next video, I'll be taking the taxi from the Cintiq Studios Polygon City Pack and using their demo scene to show some more capabilities of Eddie's vehicle physics. If you found this video useful, then please leave a like on the video. If you want to see more tutorials like this, then consider subscribing to the channel. And if there's anything that you want to see covered in a little more detail that you're a little bit uncertain about, then let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.